Do if you found out it was the King's Gambit? You don't have time to prepare.
I'd play for it. I'd play into
Go.
it. But
There
he
it
has
is,
to play E4 and a French
E6, maybe
defense.
avoid
Gary,
the King's Gambit.
Gary was taken aback because
I think he knew. I think Fabi knew when he decided to play the French, because one of his seconds probably would have told him. You know, if you're Fabiano's second, they're not allowed cell phones up there, though. So
No,
I
of
don't
course
know.
not.
Yeah.
So knight c3, inviting a winner. No, we're staying with the classical Steinitz variation. f4, c5, knight. And enormous amounts of theory have been developed in this line in that dozen-year absence of Gary. Bishop e7, Morozevich's b7, b6, a7, a6, bishop e7. Now everybody and his brother are playing queen d2, castling long, and shouting out with the move h4. There was this unbelievable game with Kramnik versus a German player in Dortmund where Kramnik sacrificed the house only to make a draw in the end. a7, a6, very standard play. Black's bishop on c8 buried. He wants to go b5, b4. He wants to go b5, b4, followed by a6, a5, and finally, it's about this bishop on c8, getting this bishop into the game to play b5, b4, a6, a5, and get this bishop to the square a6. In the meanwhile, what white usually tries to do is go h4, castle long, h5, and get a kingside attack.
So this is going to be pretty thrilling.
What has happened after a6, Jennifer?
Gary's on move.
No, a7, a6 was played.
After a6, a3.
A3?
What?
That would be a surprise. A2, A3?
Yeah, if you take a look at the camera shot.
It sure looks like A2, A3 was played. Okay, that's a big surprise for me. B5, and now bishop coming to the D3 square. Normally white doesn't like to do this as it encourages black to capture on c5 and put his knight on c5, capture on d4, pardon me, puts his knight on c5, reaching for that bishop on d3.
Instead, a quick bishop b7 from Fabiano, keeping a 1 minute lead on the clock, which is huge as we see these games constantly going down to the wire. Both players have castled.
Both players, yes, but which way did Gary castle?
Kingside.
Kingside. Okay, castles kingside. And now that the rook is no longer on h1, being a potential threat to his king, so has Fabiano. He has castled kingside himself.
The challenge of trying to get this attack rolling for white, normally you play f5 if you can. That's the challenge in this position, but he'll be hit by the move c4. So now he just made a prophylactic move, king h1, signaling intentions, signaling the possible g4.
Followed by f5.
Followed by f5. That will be more thematic to the position, and black will have to find his counterplay without a king sitting on the c1 square.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and shutting it down instantly with f5. That idea of f5 himself, but that still puts the pawn on the square.
That's not a shutdown in my view. In my view, white is given now a very clear anchor that he can hit on with rook g1 followed by g4. I agree that, for example, after rook g1 takes on d4, knight c5, but with this knight on d4, I'm eyeballing this pawn on e6, and g2, g4 really strikes me as an attractive way for white to play this position. Will he play rook g1? The other idea he can do is he can take on c5, knight takes c5,
shaking his head.
Knight d2, knight e2, followed by knight d4, trying to get a blockade against this bishop on b7.
He's played queen f2 instead, but yes, I'm so concerned. Fabiano has almost 2 more minutes than Gary. Gary's really been tanking.
And that was his bane in the rapids portion. He really badly mismanaged his clock in that part of the Rhythm and Blues tournament here in St. Louis. So queen f2, putting pressure on the c5 square, trying to get his opponent to commit, capture on d4 or not. Now the problem is if you don't capture on d4, if you play something like c4, you get a completely blocked position. But again, the resource for white in the position is g4. The resource for black is a queenside attack. I actually don't like the move c4. I think queen b6, maintaining the tension, or just capturing on d4 right away is the way to go.
I'm having flashes of this black king marching to the queen side after blocking of the position somehow.
Making an exit stage
Play the
left.
move g6, and even a la Capablanca, some h5 thing in there, and saying, okay, how do you break through if I play g6 and h5 and then bring the king on the other side?
And we have a completely different move, rook c8. Is that what we have on the
Yeah,
board?
rook c8 played, and
Whoa.
Gary's got to be relieved that Fabi thought for over a minute on that move, I believe, and now the times are much closer to equal.
Rook c8. The only thing he has in mind, the only thing I can imagine he has in mind, is he's planning a pawn sacrifice in order to open up this dangerous diagonal. So will Gary take the bait and capture on c5? Sure looks like a
How
reasonable...
sound is that pawn sacrifice?
Exactly. It sure looks like a reasonable challenge. If you don't like the challenge, then rook on a1 to d1 would be my choice. Just saying, okay, I will put my rook vis-a-vis your king.
The move's not coming out of Gary's fingertips right now. You can see he's concerned, and he's just not found a concrete plan that he's satisfied with as he's playing betwixt and between, if you will. The king h1 idea was to prepare g4. Now queen f2 actually attacking on the queen side. He could have played queen f2 without king h1.
Right.
So he's not sure what direction should I be going in. He needs flow.
Yeah.
He needs flow. Magnus Carlsen himself said it. One of the key things when you're playing in rapid and blitz is flow. Just next move, next move, next move. Gary's not showing that right now as his clock keeps ticking down inexorably. I think the time we see there is not even correct. Is that correct?
We've got a minute left for less than a minute left for Gary as he's played Yasser's rook g1 and 3 minutes for Fabiano. And I think what happened there was Fabiano had a big tank and then Gary had a big tank, but that's not how it works.
b4.
b4 has been played, and now knight takes b4.
I'm not a big fan of Fabi's approach here. b4.
Threatening, well, not
well,
really threatening
he's hitting this
c4.
bishop on d3.
And g4 has been essayed. He's got to kill the bishop, but the file potentially opening on the g file. It looks like it's unstoppable. But Black's going to have his counterplay here also, no, yes?
Oh, absolutely. Knight. I thought he was going to preserve his light square bishop with bishop f1, but he played. How did it go after knight takes before g4? What did Fabi play?
He has not yet moved, trying to decide what to do to get his play on that queen side.
Well, there's no question you got to eliminate that bishop. So you start with boldly start with the obvious.
He started actually with g6.
G6.
Leaving the bishop on the square.
What are you going to do with it? You're going to put it on f1 yet?
Yes, I am. I like preserving my bishop.
And the capture on f5. Now he's taking the bishop and now forced to capture on f5, but he's taken with the rook. And this is what I meant by the counterplay that Black will be seeking. He has pressure on that f-pawn, but here comes a knight to g3.
Absolutely. Knight g3, f5, that's kind of an automatic type of sacrifices. But actually, no, I take it back. Knight e2 is huge. If White's plan is to remember that blockading knight in the game that Gary had against David Navarra? If White could induce c5 takes d4, knight takes d4, so positionally it's over. Okay.
Rook back to f7, anticipating this knight attack.
Okay. Now you take a deep breath and you think about the move h2, h4.
It's not so deep. Not too much thought. h4 on the board.
h4.
Hyper aggressive.
Well, he's got 25 seconds. He doesn't have any more time to think deep.
Yeah, well, h5, you got to break up the team, the shield that's protecting Black's king, and h5 is the only way to do it. But when you do it, you've also exposing your own monarch. So dangers abound here.
Yes, and the rook on f7, by the way, can start to hassle you just a little bit. King moving to h8, getting out with that attack.
And h5 is an automatic.
There's no time, Gary, though. You got to play fast.
Don't even think about it.
He's
He's
played
got
it.
22 seconds for the whole game, right?
Did he make it within inside
No.
the delay?
No.
Pawn capture now, queen to h2. Lots of
Swinging
pieces
across.
hovering over near that king. It looks like
Well,
maybe
what
h4
Gary needs
is forced.
What Gary needs is to double his rooks on the G file as quickly as possible as well.
Queen F8.
Giving Gary his pawn back. Queen takes h5.
Take it. Why not?
Now you wish you had a light squared bishop, eh?
Now that bishop on b7 is a spectator. Terrible French bishop. What is
But wait.
happening? Why is Gary picked up his hand there? That seemed weird what he just did. You see his hand hovering over the board, but now back in posture. Maybe there was some noise. Maybe some noise as we see Chris Bird walk by.
A lot of spectators. There's a lot of spectators.
Oh, and
So-
now
Oh, I
and
understand
he's
that.
upset because of the noise.
There's noise because
He's
there's a big
furious because-
dispute going on in the game of Hikaru
He's
Nakamura.
like, guys, I'm
C4.
trying to win my first game here
Yeah,
in the Blitz.
give me a break.
You saw Nakamura disgusted right there as Gary's
By the
blitzing
way,
out the moves.
And we will
Huge
have-
development. C4 was played. Gary went for knight G5, and Gary has dropped his pawn. He's a pawn behind. But
Oh, no.
He's got this great attack, and he's still very, very perturbed by the noise that is going on.
So what's the
in
attacking?
Hikaru's
How are you
game.
getting more pieces into the attack? You're playing F5 at the right moment,
Absolutely.
and you obviously you can bring your rook over to G1. And knight B6
Absolutely.
has happened. Gary has to just focus. Don't get upset about that noise.
He's
still
already
seems
upset.
Angry.
He's very upset.
He's still. You gotta.
And
focus.
now he's sacrificed, and now he's changed. Going into this ending after queen takes. Nope, forget the ending.
Bye bye endgame.
Bishop f6 on the board
On
in a
tap.
second. Knight has to go back, it looks, to d7, or maybe he's prepared to sacrifice
Rook
on
F8.
f6. Now the queen dropping back.
8 seconds left for Gary.
Doesn't this allow
25
queen
seconds.
check?
Look.
Oh, queen check king g1.
Queen check king G1 has
now-
been played, Maurice.
How
Oh
does
my.
white improve? White's just going to play bishop f6 and trade, like as fast
Clear.
as
So
he
we
can.
can play rook G8.
Knight C4. Ooh, rook G8.
No, he's
Ooh.
brought the knight
But
back,
instead he's
to
put the knight to
D7.
D7.
challenging white to
3-2.
find a move.
6 seconds left for,
Now he
for
can
Gary.
trade queens. Now
King
he can trade
H2,
queens, and he's
which
done
he
so.
has.
He's done it.
And this
And
looks
the attack.
good for black.
White's attack has completely gone a cropper as Gary is now down 2 pawns.
King g8 simply, or king g7 he's
Seven
played
has
instead.
played.
But look at Fabi. He's also only got 12 seconds left on the clock.
What's the knight doing over there?
He's not moving fast, is Fabi. So this is going to continue to get nutty.
Oh, trading off, and wait, this position.
No
this
trade.
king. Now it looks like he can pick off another pawn.
Which he has
And there
done,
it's
Maurice.
happened.
And that knight does not look that impressive. And oh no, rook c1 is a
Rook
threat.
C1 now on the board. F7 about to be played by Gary. But what does
Necessary
that do?
move.
Oh,
It deflects the king. And ignoring it. Oh, what a move.
Pretty
Beautiful, and
finish.
there it is.
What a
A
move.
pretty
Gary
finish.
has
That's
flagged.
king.
Gary has fell